Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Emily, for inviting me. This is very exciting. It's in a culmination of I would have to say, the last 3 years for this organization, but 20 years for me. So I am, as Emily said, originally from Kingston, Jamaica. And for those of you who don't know where Jamaica is or a little bit about the Caribbean is pretty much spaced out. The islands themselves, the Caribbean islands, we are about maybe more than 100 islands, very much well spaced out. And depending on who colonized us, we speak many different languages, but we have a lot in common, and the Caribbean Sea is what we have in common. So we do have the Caribbean small islands. However, in the continent, the Latin American, the South and Middle of America, we do have on the coast, we have Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, as well as further south, we have Guyana as a part of the Caribbean Sea. Now, within the region, the English speaking islands, of which Jamaica is the largest, have formed a somewhat organization called CARICOM. And CARICOM is similar to what you may find as in the EU, where there are about 13 countries that have come together to try to share information and have bilateral agreements. However, this conversation, although we did start out as English speaking organization, we pretty much expanded it because we wanted to incorporate majority of the Caribbean. So most people think the Caribbean as, blue seas, relaxing, coconut water, waterfalls. Our primary economy is tourism, and aquaculture comes pretty much at the bottom of the list. If we want to compare to global statistics in 2022, as most of you may or may not know, aquaculture is the fastest growing food sector, and it surpassed for the first time captured fisheries. Now, the islands, as you may understand, is that we are seafood eating. We are primarily by culture fisheries or fishing industry, and not really aquaculture. So aquaculture, although had started in the 70s, the growth rate really has not kept up to the world statistics. Aquaculture sort of started in Jamaica in the late 70s and 80s with tilapia. More the reason being, the primary reason being, is that our fisheries are overfished. We have by the late 70s, 80s, 70% or more of our fish in the Caribbean, in the region of Jamaica and all the other islands, are overfished. And so aquaculture was sort of introduced as a way to kind of preserve some of our fisheries. And it progressed quite well in Jamaica until the 90s, in for various reasons, many reasons which you can research. It declined. And by 2022, Jamaica was producing, the Caribbean produces less than 0.5% totally. And it sort of picked up during the pandemic because, of course, importation was really difficult, and we import primarily a lot of our seafood. That it really picked up and made people see that why aquaculture is really important as a means of food security. But since then, it declined again. So why is it important for Caribbean small islands, which I tend to want to focus on because compared to Latin America, which the Caribbean tends to be lumped into, Latin America, we want to focus on specifically small islands. So of course, it's a cheap protein source, and it is a way to conserve our marine species. It can bring in a livelihood for farmers because we have ornamental fish as a way as well, and just a source of income. So the traditional aquaculture has always been tilapia, and over the years we have had shrimp, some carp, as well as what we call sea moss. which is actually edible red algae. So there are many, many challenges, and over the years, whether it's our NGO, regional NGOs, our governments, always it has been about land and freshwater availability, especially for the smaller islands. So traditionally, people think of aquaculture as big ponds, very large ponds, utilizing a lot of fresh water, they have to import feed, which is very expensive. There are very high costs of energy. And so there's all these different challenges that you can read about why aquaculture has not grown in the Caribbean. And for me, the important thing is that over the years that I have seen is just a lack of skilled human resources, which I'm going to talk about some more. So, because I've been in the industry so long, I thought I was becoming a dinosaur because no one else in the Caribbean seemed to really want to push aquaculture. During the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I wanted to connect with farmers that I used to work with or continue to work with. And the main topic that came about was there was no network for farmers, especially in Jamaica, because that's where I worked primarily. Um, and also there was a lot of competition between farmers. Farmers thought that they knew, each farmer had the monopoly on the information. And I wanted to let them know that, well, no, everyone knows about aquaculture outside of the Caribbean. So you don't have the monopoly. In fact, you don't have a lot of information. Let's open it up so that you can start working together and actually learning from other countries within the Caribbean. So as you can see, the Caribbean is really quite spaced out, and it's really not that easy to get from island to island. And so we're in the age of digital world. Why not? This is a way to bring us closer. So in 2021, we started having free webinars, and please check out our YouTube so you can see some of the conversations that we've had and how we have grown and the things that we've done in the last since 2021. And we just had conversations and really started the first networking, especially throughout the Caribbean, because we'd have people from other countries that would come, even as far as Africa, India. People would just log on to get connected, especially during the pandemic. What was really interesting, which again, I thought I was the dinosaur, the only uh, person in the Caribbean that had a PhD in aquaculture, was that a lot of the scientists that study aquaculture are actually women. And so people started reaching out to me, women started reaching out to me through the networking. And we found quite a lot of us, some like me who live outside of the country, but also within the Caribbean region, wanting to connect. There's a serious lack loophole and that we were in. And so we started by 2022, and Biomar really invested in us and sponsored us for the last 3 years. And so we developed Women in Caribbean
Justo por
Aquaculture.
eso cuando me pongo como más de malas, güey, estoy como pensando.
And so this was a way to gain visibility for women scientists. Um, we have a lot of women doing very great things around the Caribbean and outside of the country, but no one really knew what they were doing. And so we did an article or a series, and you can check the fishsite.com, which celebrates women in Caribbean aquaculture, and you can see some of the work that they've actually been doing. And we did various not podcasts, but YouTube discussions. So please go and check those out. So I did a bit of traveling in the last 2 years, and also, by 2023, we had really started connecting with around the islands, which was amazing. I mean, it was just incredible knowing that all of these activities were happening. As Emily said, a lot of people didn't know what was happening in the Caribbean. People would say, "What? We didn't know aquaculture was in the Caribbean," but there are. It's not a lot, but there's stuff happening. And so um, just to see what some of the things that we're doing is that CMOS. CMOS is the colloquial term for red seaweed or algae in the Caribbean. And you can see that in St. Lucia, Belize, Jamaica. And here you can see some of the young people that I connected with. Makeba, who is in St. Lucia, is now currently doing her, I think, either master's or PhD or graduate school outside of St. Lucia. She got a scholarship, which is amazing. Matthew is now doing his master's in Jamaica, and Ruth just graduated with her PhD, and this is all within the last 2 years. So I'm pretty excited and very proud for them to be really pioneering aquaculture in the Caribbean. We have in Puerto Rico, this is Dr. Stacy Williams. She is one of our trustees and board of directors. She's doing amazing work with sea urchins, coral reef recovery, and oyster production. And I visited them last year. And again, in the Caribbean, it's really hard to get funding, and they have done amazing work just to get where they are right now. So, yeah, if you're in Puerto Rico, check them out. We have Panama, which I met Roz in 2023 at the World Aquaculture Latin American and Caribbean Conference, and was really impressed to learn about sea cucumbers, which is something that is fished a lot in the Caribbean and culturally not very well known. And this is something that it could be introduced very easily as a low trophic species. And so it was really interesting to learn more about how sea cucumber cultivation and how that can be introduced in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. We have oyster culture in Jamaica, which the National Fisheries Authority, which is an arm of the Ministry of Agriculture. Here we have Leanne, who has been one of our founders for women in Caribbean aquaculture and a supporter. Leanne is really ready to do anything to support aquaculture. She just finished her master's and is back in Jamaica working on oyster culture. We do have a lot of challenges when growing because of the warmer waters that are happening currently in the Caribbean. Tilapia, kind of left it for last because that has always been the number one. And so wanted to show you some of the other work that is doing. When tilapia was introduced, it wasn't considered very highly because we are seafood eating people, and it's very difficult to change culture. And so the original white or black looking tilapia was not very well accepted. And so over the years, the hybrid red tilapia is a lot more accepted because it looks more like something marine. And so it's the preferred tilapia in Jamaica. And then we have ornamental fish industry, which has been struggling a lot, primarily again because of lack of capacity, but which has a huge potential to become an export market if all the right circumstances are there. So I've worked with these farmers for many years, and they grow some beautiful fish. And then I did my Fulbright in Bahamas and learned a lot about the Caribbean spiny lobster. And this is one of the areas in which we really could do a lot more research. Mariculture is an untapped potential. And so this is one of the things that we really want to look at in the future is, whether it's aquarium species, whether it's sea moss in other islands. Um, we are island nations, and so we are not looking at enough at how we can grow marine species. So I did go through the challenges and constraints before, um, but the primary one is trained, skilled human resources. We don't have any aquaculture regulations separate from fisheries. We don't have a lot of R&D, and we don't have any aquaculture curriculum within our secondary, tertiary institutions. So in last year, 2024, um, we felt to continue this work, we really needed to pool together and form a hub. So all scientists have come together that I have met, and we have a board of directors, and we now have a scientific advisory board. And you're welcome to go and look at our website, and you can see who our scientists are, where they're from, primarily from the Caribbean and the US, but we are expanding our hub to have more scientists come and join us so that we can come together to figure out how we can create the policies or what can we do to get aquaculture attention that it needs in the Caribbean. So we have done a lot since 2023 in a very short space of time, um, and trying to see what else can we do to really start on the ground work. How can we make it better? What we need is more investment in R&D and innovation, like developing aqua feeds. Here you can see Maya, another one of our board members who is currently doing her PhD. Again, I'm so excited for all of our next generation that have begun to really get into R&D since we started these and networkings to get them excited. But we need a lot of work in terms of genetic diversity, climate smart technology, looking at apps, and how we can make more climate smart aquaculture. Just looking at the devastation that happened in Jamaica just 1 month ago in terms of Hurricane Melissa, our food security is threatened at the moment. In fact, the majority of the side of Jamaica in which the food is grown was severely damaged. And so there is going to be a food shortage, and this is where aquaculture comes in. However, we need to be prepared for the oncoming years because we're just having more and more heat stress, more hurricanes, more flooding. So we need to have the R&D to make it happen. And so for me and for, my team, we see that there is a very important need for capacity building for research scientists, extension officers, technical assistants. One thing I learned when I went to Eleuthera in the Bahamas, the island school, they were actually teaching 10th graders. So I participated and found 10th graders are so open, which is not a concept that is in our islands for teaching aquaculture within secondary schools. So we really need to change the culture of the region, which may not think of aquaculture as a science. It's not very well understood, and so it's something that we have to change that idea and the dynamics that it's actually a STEM subject. And so we need to introduce it within the secondary and tertiary schools. So just understanding this, doing all this research, doing all this networking, where we really need to start doing the work is the next generation. We have a huge generational gap. I keep calling myself a dinosaur because after me, there are hardly any. We're really excited in the last 2 years. I can no longer say that I'm the only one because we see students have started getting excited and getting scholarships to go and get trained and do graduate work. So we decided that we really needed to focus on the next generation, and we formed Youth in Caribbean Aquaculture last year with 8 students from University of the West Indies who study between marine biology or environmental science. And they were so excited. We said we really need to see how we can get funding to continue doing this work. So we now have a formed organization where we have a president, a secretary, and now a coordinator of events. And you can go on our YouTube and check out our last networking events where we're going to try to do more of these kinds of networking specifically for next generation. And last year, we were able to get funding for the very, very first time to get scientists or young scientists to a conference. They never ever get to go to a conference. It's very expensive, it's a limitation. And so young people are not, I don't know if the word is encouraged, but the funding is not there for them to expand, to go out to speak. And so, right now, we're very excited that we got two scholarships just recently for the conference in World Aquaculture Society conference in Las Vegas next year. And so we're going to, for the first time, send two to America. But this is something that we really need to get more of our students exposed, talking about their work. And so we formed a Youth in Aquaculture Next Generation program. And this is a pilot program. Again, we hardly get any funding from governments. We don't get funding from our regional organizations. It's been very, very difficult, very much a challenge, whether it's because it's not considered something, like I said, tourism is number one, aquaculture is at the bottom. And so it's been really difficult to get the attention of the gatekeepers in our region, but luckily we've been able to get some funding from other organizations. BIMR is like the first that has always helped us, so I have to keep shouting them out. But this is a pilot program in which what we're going to be doing is taking the undergrads and graduates. We're going to be training them, and so we're looking at marine science, environmental, computer, engineering. This is a very pioneering idea, and they will now go and go out to the farmers who are seasoned farmers, but there's also an educational gap. Lots of farmers sometimes they don't have a high school or university degree, but they're very much knowledgeable in how to rear fish. But we needed to take it to the next level. And so they'll get mentorship, and then they will now go out and go to the schools and do an outreach program. So if you want to join Youth in Caribbean Aquaculture, here we have the QR code. So you can feel free to join or send an email. And we invite you to come and work with us by subscribing to our newsletter, subscribing to our Youth in Aquaculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juli-Anne Russo. That was an amazing presentation. I'm hoping that everybody has questions. I just encourage you to ask your questions while you have an expert in front of you that can answer them. I did see one in the chat, so I'll make sure that we go back to that. Rachel Precious asked, I've read that oyster aquaculture is limited due to low algae availability in the water. Is that true, or are there other constraints, mitigations?
So I'm not an oyster expert. And so I encourage you to reach out to the experts that we have shown. This is why we have, all different experts within our networking region. But one of the problems that we do have in the Caribbean is that the waters are much, much warmer than they used to be. And so our oysters are becoming much smaller. And I'm not really sure about the food that they're getting either. I think that's a very important question. But yeah, you have to reach out and ask them for more questions, for more answers.
Great. And if anyone happens to be an oyster expert that actually knows the answer, feel free to drop it in the chat as well. Sometimes that happens. Right. And anyone else, just feel free to raise your hand or put the question in the chat. Well, go ahead, Gunnar.
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. So, Julie, thank you very much for the presentation. Like we discussed a few weeks back when you and I met, the education side of the industry is very much needed. And you've obviously expressed how difficult it is to first get candidates, but then also the funding for the education. It's not really a question necessarily to you, but I'm just wondering how similar it is with getting actual funding for the projects themselves, because a lot of the things you've been presenting or bringing up as existing agriculture operations are things that started way back, at least in Jamaica. But then on the rest of the 44 million people living in the greater Caribbean basin, there isn't much, first and foremost, knowledge, but then also the capital to even employ some of these future agriculturists. So just making a point there that it's been a very large struggle to gather capital, both for the education, but then actually for the project themselves, because the governments, the entities, international entities, do not look at Caribbean as a agriculture specific area, even though the potential are huge. But just wanted to make that point. Thank you. Great presentation, Julie.
Thank you. Right. So it's like a what is it? It's like catch 24, right? We don't have although what I like to say is that our capacity for our students is what is not being looked at. Our education system is excellent. We turn out scientists, like 90% scientists. I would have to say in my high school, in my class, majority of my classmates are medical doctors. So we have a very high standard of education throughout the Caribbean, but we also have a brain drain. And most of the students that study science go into the medical field or engineering. And so they're not being exposed to this field and its capacity. And that's what we formed this hub to do, is to really focus on this generation who is looking for something else. They may not want to leave the Caribbean, they may not want to leave their home country, they want to stay within their home country. What can they do if they don't want to do medical school, but they are really into science? This is a field in which we're trying to expose them to the capacity. At the same time, we're trying to encourage investments. So, right now, people are making investments in Africa, people are making investments in Europe. So, investments are being made. We are trying to attract those investments to the Caribbean and to hire the students that we are trying to get trained. So, I think, as a culture, if you take an example of the Jamaican bobsled team, no one had any interest in bobsledding when they first went out. And now, that was 1988. Now in 2025, they're winning goals. If we're persistent enough, if we get the funding, if we are able to get it started, then I think they will see, what it is that we can do. If you have no concept or you've never done it and you have no vision to understand what it's capable of, then it's very difficult to invest. And so this is why we have started this next gen. We have started a fundraising. If you want to give $5, we are excited for it. But we feel that we have to start now. We can't wait anymore on governments. We can't wait on, the academia. We have to start it ourselves. And so coming together to work like this, I think this is the best way to go.
Yes, Julian, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you cannot have one without the other. And from what you're explaining, I'm originally from Curacao, also grew up, went into engineering, and has been away for 25 years. And now we're trying to come back, and you realize that, to your point exactly, there's not a lot of knowledge or not to say respect, but appreciation for how important this could be. Governments are not really aligned don't even think about it. There's no Ministry of Fisheries or laws or whatnot. But we need to start with education. All I'm saying is we're aligned. I'm behind exactly what you guys are doing, because we need that. We need the human capital to come aligned, right next to the investments for the future. So kudos. Thank you.
And we see it happening. Like I said, these students that are currently going on to get further training, there are a few investments. So you had asked earlier, who are these investments that you're seeing? They're actually private. So within Puerto Rico and the Bahamas, these are private investments in which are currently happening. So coming together, getting all of these private R&D institutions working together, we can use exchanges and teach students and hopefully attract further investments into the Caribbean.
Thank you. I'm going to take a brief second to tell you guys something I realized I didn't tell you at the beginning. This webinar is hosted by the Aquaculture Information Exchange. And if you don't know what that is, it is like a social networking site for the aquaculture industry. It's funded through NOAA and the USDA, but it is open to anyone globally. So if you're looking for opportunities to network across countries or across nations, look for funding opportunities, jobs in aquaculture, just learn how other people are doing it in another place. It's a wonderful site to join. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. And like I said, it's completely free. And you can create your own groups. So if you wanted to create a group on there dedicated to the Caribbean, you're welcome to do that if you'd like, Juli-Anne. I'm going to go to the question in the chat, which is changing topics a little bit. But is there potential for marine farmed fish? And Alexander, if you'd like to clarify, are you talking near shore or offshore, or certain species? Feel free to clarify.
So at the moment, in Jamaica, there is a project between FAO, the government, and University of Miami, which they are currently doing research to look at the growth of red snapper. So that's new. That's like within the last couple of months. Again, there's always potential. However, the caveat is that you can come and start a business. We would like that instead you're always maybe importing workers, is that you utilize the students, the young people, the scientists that are in the countries to help to run the facilities. So, we're inviting people to come and invest, but to train and then to give jobs to young people within the countries. Hope
Thank you.
that answered the
Well, there's
question.
not another question. I'll hop in with mine. I work in aquaculture communications and marketing, so trying to, help the public become more aware of aquaculture. I'm curious, in the Caribbean, in general, does like your everyday person know that there's aquaculture going on in their country? And what efforts are you guys doing to help the public understand like the great potential that you're talking about?
Right. So the question that you asked is no. So people may think aquaculture is just tilapia, because especially in Jamaica, that's what they know of. And so this is why we have started this outreach program. We feel because we have seen some of the work. I saw some of your videos. This is what is happening in America, and I think it's a great idea, and that's what we're trying to adopt, is to be able to go out and do an outreach program throughout the schools. So I have talked to some teachers. We did one webinar for teachers, and they're very interested, but it does definitely has to be a marketing campaign. And we want to do it from a scientific point of view. We're really trying to start from top down so that we can really get people to understand that it's a science. It should be a STEM subject, and have more of our science, the kids that are interested in science, to be involved.
Thank you. I'll definitely have to email you after to see if there's anything we can do to help with that.
That would be great.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know it was such a great talk, but I'm sure that there's questions. So if anyone's hesitant, please put them in the chat. The time is now.
So I would like to encourage people to um, subscribe to all of our social media. Look at our YouTube and our newsletter, because when we do have events, then you can come to our events and participate and network. And now that we have connected with the Aquaculture Exchange, we have an even wider network of within the industry.
Okay, if no one's going to ask anything, I'm super curious about sea cucumber. I didn't know you could eat it until I saw your presentation today. Can you tell us a little bit more about sea cucumber as a food source?
Well, we have Roz. Roz, are you there?
Oh, yes. Love my sea cucumbers. It's the third most expensive seafood behind bluefin tuna and caviar. And the primary market is Asia because there they eat them and they're considered an aphrodisiac also. They also are high in protein, collagen, and chondroitin. So it's basically a superfood. You can also dehydrate them and make protein powder and capsules that contain the nutrients. So we think we have a real winner here. We spent 5 years proving concept on the Caribbean coast of Panama. So we have every knowledge base from how to spawn in captivity and how to raise the survivability, the larval rearing. And then our plan, our model is that we actually release the juveniles on the ocean floor and let them self feed because they're filter feeders. So our cost of production is super low. And then we harvest back at 18 months, freeze dry, vacuum seal. And the main goal in order to scale the project and make it commercially viable is, of course, the export market. So, yeah, it's a very cool project. And we're excited. I have a meeting next week, which I want to talk to Juli-Anne more about, because I know it came up on this chat about the lack of government cohesion in policy dedicated to aquaculture. So I'm very excited and I will report back to the group. I have a meeting next week with the minister who administrates water rights, which is what aquaculture falls under in Panama. And so I'm going to put on his radar a bunch of issues that hopefully will push forward a cohesive governmental policy. Right now, our biggest challenges are the hoops we have to jump through within the bureaucracies to make this all come together. The science was easy, the proving concept was easy, but now it's the government bureaucracies. Also, we're a cheap animal to raise. So I know some of you are doing fin fish, and that's way more expensive and complicated, but we're an ugly little invertebrate. And so nobody, really cares about us, which is a good thing. So we're hoping to push that forward. And if any of you have advice for me, please add me on LinkedIn. You can see my name here, Rosalind Bytel. But if you have any advice on other places in the region that have been successful in driving government policy, I would be really open to learning how you did that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it and definitely will follow up with you on LinkedIn. I'm going to bring this question up right now. I know you were not the first one, but it's so heavily related. We'll skip to the other one just after. Cleet says, you mentioned many challenges. Is the permitting process and cost also a major challenge? And I'm curious, this might be for finfish or marine.
I think it's island specific. Right now, I think in Jamaica it's possible. But as Ross says, they have problems in Panama. So it really depends. And Gunnar, he's in Curacao. It depends island to island what their priorities are and how easy it is. For Jamaica, it's open. And although a lot is not necessarily done in aquaculture, they are encouraging aquaculture to come in.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Kurt's question. You mentioned that the warmer waters are a problem for oysters. What about for local fish species?
Yes, so for oysters, it's a marine space. For tilapia, which is freshwater, they're actually having a lot more diseases, heat stress diseases throughout the summer. So you will start to see, especially this summer, I got some case studies from the farmers where persistent heat cause a lot of deaths, like oxygen stress. And so, yes, we're starting to see more of it. In Jamaica, in particular, we didn't really have, it was pretty much pathogen free from what I understood. But with the change in the climate, we're starting to see more problems.
Thank you. And we have another question in the chat from Harden. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He says, I just recently completed my PhD in fisheries resource science with my research focused on improving the sustainability of post-larval shrimp culture by incorporating artificial and live feed. I think my research can be beneficial to shrimp aquaculture in the Caribbean. That being said, what are your plans for improving or increasing shrimp production, if you have any?
So I don't have any plans particularly. However, I think FAO and the governments, I think maybe Trinidad or Jamaica, is trying to expand shrimp culture. Um, what our, as a hub, what our future goals are is to focus on getting the curriculum in the education system and then to have more R&D, and based on that to assist um, organizations or investors who want to expand their operation. So what we would do is, like, if you have your specialty, um, right now is to really to get yourself out there, to start doing some working with organizations, showing people what knowledge skill that you have, that you practice, especially practical knowledge skill, by going to conferences, showing people what you're doing. And then, we can say, well, this person is a shrimp specialist. When projects come up, we can refer you to whatever projects are happening.
Thank you. Sounds like a great connection. We have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any burning questions you haven't asked, go ahead. And I'm also going to flip it a little bit. Juli-Anne, if you have any questions for the audience, you're also free to ask a question. I think there's a lot of people in this room, and I know a few people and what they're doing in aquaculture. So if you have any questions, maybe things that you've hit a wall in your work, or you're interested in finding a different network or some specialists, feel free to ask.
I guess the primary one is, what is your general interest in the Caribbean? Caribbean and Caribbean aquaculture.
I can go ahead and start that one, and if anyone wants to type that out in the chat or raise their hand, they can. Okay, Gunner's like, mine. For me, I am at Florida Sea Grant, but I'm on a regional grant from NOAA that is about promoting aquaculture literacy in the U.S. Southeast, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So while that's not all of the islands, it is part of your territory that you're working with. So my goal broadly is to help the general public learn more about it, and hopefully also increase aquaculture and local seafood consumption amongst the same people. But anyone else, please feel free to chime in. This is a great networking opportunity.
Yes, like I mean, other than sun, sea, and coconut trees, what do you know about the Caribbean? What made you interested to learn about the Caribbean?
Okay, so Rosalind typing away, and we can see a response now. Employment and restore marine ecosystems. Come on, I know there's more people behind those little headshots.
Or what stereotypes or myths can we dispel about the Caribbean?
Go ahead,
Can
Russ.
I was going to add something. Yeah, one thing, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that's frustrating for us in Latin America, and I don't know if it's region wide, I, of course, mentioned the permitting process, but also the fact that governments are so in charge of our future. And governments where I am change every 5 years. So every 5 years, we go through this whole shake the sheets process. And one thing I'm hoping with the Caribbean Aquaculture Hub is that we can become bigger than any one 5 year administration and draft regional policy that then they sign on to and get on board with. Does that make sense? Are any of you having
Yes.
issues too?
Yes, thanks, Ross. I mean, that's something, a very, very important point that I left out. So one of the reasons why I started this hub was that um aquaculture, I think Emily, you had asked that question. Aquaculture is very much driven, it's government driven. It's again, our islands are very, very young. Jamaica is 60 years old. We got independence from Britain in 1962, and most of the English speaking Commonwealth around the same time. So we're a very, very young country, and traditionally we are have been managed by governments. So whether it's education, healthcare, again, food security, whatever the government policies are, that's how the country is driven. And so we feel, that's why I'm focusing on the next generation, that anybody whom is 60 and over has grown up under this colonial system. And so again, it's very cultural. And so we need to change that paradigm shift in which we are functioning outside, we are a third party. And we feel that we need to have academia as the functioning body when it comes to R&D, just as it's like it is in America, where you have academia running the R&D part and government functions as a regulatory part. And so having a hub filled with scientists, filled with academia, we are trying to be the third party that is neutral and it's non-political. We're not aligned to any political affiliation, that we can drive policies based on science and based on facts. And so, like Ross said, I think moving forward, this is our vision for the next years, that we can have a next generation that is driving our policies that make sense for our country rather than a government which is changed every 4 years.
Thank you. Go ahead and I'm sure you have a comment, Gunnar. And then we did have a couple of people in the chat mention why they're here, so we can also look at those.
Yeah, so very quickly, I mean, one of the concerns we've seen happening, for example, Julie, you mentioned CARICOM in the beginning. One of the complaints with that whole what CARICOM could be has been that it hasn't really produced for all of the different islands, mainly because of what you just said. A colonial structure that is still there, that is actually have all the islands divided from each other, so they don't share data, they don't share a lot of information. And what you're trying to do is exactly what we need, is to break down those barriers, be neutral. So this is a vote of confidence for what it is you're doing. And what better to bring people to the table than food, right? I mean, we can do it, maybe not necessarily with energy or hotels or whatnot, because that's very competitive, but bring people together from a food security, but just sharing food and ideas and whatnot is a good thing. We're used to that, right? Either around a dinner table or a business meeting or whatever. So I do think this is the right way to start and maybe change that paradigm that existed for so long since the colonial times of all the islands being separated, either you're English or you're Dutch or you're French. But at the end of the day, we are one region, and we should start working more together. So that's
And
it.
if you eat plantain and you eat fish, you're Caribbean.
Yes, yes.
My name's Tyler. I work with the Nova Sea.
Hi, Tyler.
I know we just have a few minutes left, but my company Novasi is leading a project to pre-permit a farm in Puerto Rico. This is funded by Sea Grant. And Innovasi is not a farm operator, so it's very nice that we are not sensitive about the data at all. We are planning on publishing the process, and that includes the permitting process, as well as all the data capture to support the permitting process, the farm planning, the financial planning, and all of that will be written up and published. And the goal is to disseminate that information for the benefit of the community in general. But of course, also we're hopeful that the farm will get funded, which is separate from the grant. And then we'll have a physical operating farm, which can also be profitable in creating jobs and all that good stuff, but serve as a model for the community in general. And Puerto Rico is a good example. All the islands are unique in their own way, but Puerto Rico has some reasons why it's a good first place to do it. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. You can Google me, find me if you want to know about the project. Juli-Anne, I've mentioned this to you. And if you come to Aquaculture America or anything like that, you'll see some of the first outputs from that. Otherwise, you can just keep an eye online and they'll start to come out over the next couple months. So we're excited for that and it's very relevant for this community. So I just wanted to let everyone know.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks,
I'll pass it
Tyler.
to Rosalind for some quick comments, and then Juli-Anne, if you have any quick comments, and then I'll wrap. We have just a couple minutes left.
Tyler, great meeting you. Is Innovasi part of the Cuna Del Mar operations?
Yes, we're a
Okay.
Kuna portfolio company.
Oh, wonderful. Well, as you know, we have Open Blue on our coastline as well, and we're very aligned and collegial with Open Blue. So I just added you on LinkedIn. So great to know we're connected.
Perfect. Perfect.
Great. Dr. Juli-Anne Russo, do you have any final comments that you want to make before I
Yes,
wrap?
so please check out our fundraiser. And like I said, this is one of our only ways besides sponsorship to be able to get these projects going. So any amount to help us out, we want to start in January. And we want to make a difference in 2026. We don't want to wait anymore. I've gone to all the governments, gone to all the NGOs, and I'm a very determined person. So we want 2026 to make it happen. So we're reaching out to you to share our fundraising link, and any amount can help us out.
Thank you. And if you have any, we saw collaborations and networking opportunities, potential synergies, make sure that you follow up. That's also a great way to be able to be in the know about funds or figure out ways that projects can combine multiple interests. Again, I'm going to plug to join the AIE if you haven't. It's free. This webinar will be there and on the Aquaculture Information Exchange YouTube account in the next week or so. And that's another great place to continue these conversations. And if you're going to be at Aquaculture America, I will be there. Jay, if you want to let us know if the AIE will be there, I'm assuming it will be. Let's talk and meet in person.
And two of our students will be there. Maya and Augusta will be there. So please reach out to them and
Great.
welcome them. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much for coming.
No problem. Thank you.